All right. Hello, it's Wednesday. We are live. I've got Rebecca Epstein here. Happy Wednesday. Thank you so much. I'm just going to quickly get my screen ready so that if anyone joins us live, I can make sure I see comments. Please drop any comments, questions, anything, and we'll just get rolling in a second. But I'm so happy to be here. This is my group, Peaceful and Profitable Entrepreneurs, and that's what Rebecca is going to help us with today with the business entity selection to feel peaceful about what you've selected and to help just have more money, more profit, do it correctly, in integrity, all that stuff. I always like to do giveaways. So if you join today, hop on live, leave a comment, or catch the replay. We will be giving away my masterclass. It's 90 minutes, 4 ways to grow your business. So it's basically the only 4 ways you can grow your business. I know the online space likes to make it complicated, but these are the basics. It's what I always come back to with my clients. It's a very robust masterclass. So that's what we are giving away today. And next week, we're going to start our monthly masterclass. So if you join, you'll get the playbook ahead of time. It's for you to keep always and forever. And I'll be giving a coaching session away. So I'll drop the link below for that and you can get signed up. So today with Rebecca, we're going to play like my favorite little 10 questions game that I have from the Actor Studio, which I've never actually watched the Actor Studio, but I like his questions. So yeah, that's what we're going with. So Rebecca, are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Ready. All right, let's do it. What's your favorite word?
So I kind of have 2 answers for some of these. One as my normal self in my daily life, and then the other as myself at this desk. And my very favorite personal word is snacks. I love to eat, but I think the word snacks is just the funniest word. So real highbrow there.
Yeah.
And then at work, I always love when people are willing to learn. So I put learn there.
Yes.
That is an important one, kind of a cheesy one, but
I love those. Yeah. And I say snacks all the time with my daughter. So now I'm going to think of it in such a different light. Like,
say it 5 times fast, word. Man.
Yeah.
It is.
And it's so good.
Right?
Snacks.
So
then what's your least favorite word?
I couldn't think of, I started with no, but I think that no is a super powerful word, and it's a really important word, especially in business, where we're especially in a growth phase where you're sitting there and you're trying to do 1,000 things at one time. So that got kicked out. And so the only one I really came up with was for work, and I got to tell you, it's 2 words, and I hate them: sweat equity.
Just like nails on a chalkboard one.
A little bit, because you know what's going to come next. I have worked for a company. They have promised me sweat equity as interest in the company, and they won't give it to me now. And the very next thing I have to say is, I hate to hear that. Unfortunately, in the state of South Carolina, we do not recognize sweat equity as a capital contribution. And so and I can't tell you how many times this has happened in my office. It's a bad situation. So I hate sweat equity.
You're like, who started this? Who made this a thing? Like,
I get it. And actually it can work if you actually quantify what you're doing.
Yeah.
But everybody's just like, I work so hard. And I'm like, yeah, me too. But like, you got to put dollars to it.
Yeah. Yes, that's a really good point. So not just with the entity selection, everyone here, like these 10 questions, I think we're learning a lot already. So the next one, what turns you on? And this is just, not talking about a sexual connotation, but just whatever you like.
That'd be kind of
lights
awkward,
you
right?
up. I know. I'm like, I need to kind of change the wording of that, I think. But
I actually got 5 words here, like kind of a subtle confidence, which is one kind of thing: creativity, kindness, and organization. Those are kind of the things that really, when I'm working with a client or in my personal life, I love funny people too, who don't take themselves too seriously. So that's a turn on.
Yeah. Love that.
For sure.
Good call.
Yeah.
What turns you off?
Close-mindedness. No's, that immediate no without that knee-jerk no.
Yeah.
that's frustrating both in my office. We do a lot of dispute resolution, and there's a lot of big feelings and that happen within that. I'll never forget one of my mentors said one time that compromise means everybody loses. And I like to think of it a little bit differently, but when you come into those situations and you're closed-minded, certainly everybody loses. And nothing gets resolved, but you get to pay me a bunch of money, and I'm a huge fan of that, but not the real joy.
No. And I
Yes.
totally see that especially with what you do, with that being such a big thing and coming from fear and coming from these stories that we've already always told ourselves. And there's just so much behind that you're just getting it right there in the office, but like, there's just like way more underneath that, and it's just like, oh gosh, like, but yeah, having that immediate.
And you gotta dig through. I mean, sometimes I get clients in here that just won't let it go. And sometimes you're able to kind of wade through some of the junk that has happened and really find that initial pain point or whatever it is. Again, sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's just like, all right, you know what? I mean, and I've said it twice this past week. If you need to sue me, please serve my office between these hours. And that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, so
like, I'm not a therapist.
Yeah. Exactly. So
what's your favorite cuss word? You can say
oh
it.
my God. Fuck.
Yeah.
It is the best word. It's an adjective, it's a verb, it's a noun. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but there's a show with Nicolas Cage, and it's about fuck, the word fuck.
No,
And
I didn't know
also,
that.
yeah, it's great. The origin of curse words. But it was really cool. I like the word the word fuck, because one of my favorite classes in law school, I took a Supreme Court study, the United States Supreme Court study. And in that, we had to actually act out and like go through as if we were trying a case in front of the Supreme Court, which were our peers who literally dressed up in robes and everything. It was super fun. But the case that I argued was, I argued on behalf of the FCC for the time that Kim Kardashian at the MTV Movie Awards said the word fuck on a live broadcast.
Yeah.
And so it became this really like fun argument that we got to have within our class. And is there such a thing as one free fuck? Can we allow that? And so it was, so that cemented fuck is the
I'm like
word,
getting chills because that's just like brilliant, like for stuff. Like that's amazing.
It was a really fun class, and it was really nice to understand kind of the inner workings of how the Supreme Court works, because it does tend to make the headline news, as you may have seen recently. They've done a thing or two that have raised an eyebrow.
Things going on.
Yeah, just a few. So yeah, fuck is definitely my favorite swear word, and it's said unfortunately too often.
I'm on board with that. What sound do you love?
So I love music. And I know that sounds silly, but like the gym music where it's super loud and in your ears, that's like pump up. Like occasionally you will see me at my desk. I look that way because I have a thing of drumsticks. And when I'm in the middle of like kind of a funny little drumming, like a tough problem, or I just need to kind of work through something in my head, I'll sit here and listen to music and drum away. And I have no rhythm. So there's that, but maybe it's a dream.
Yeah, I think music can get us through basically anything. That's kind of my motto.
Right?
So yeah, I can see that.
I know there's something about it too. And I gotta tell you, not to plug the AirPod Pros, but they are amazing. The sound quality.
Oh, nice.
Oh yeah. I like to turn it super loud. That's my jam. So
what sound do you hate? Did you have something else?
No. I was going to say screaming. My kids fight a lot right now. I have twin 6-year-old boys, and there is a lot of screaming. And I think also, from a work perspective, we get screamed at and around, and, there's a lot of emotions. And I always try to remind people, it's not the volume of your voice, but kind of the tenor of it that's most important. And, it's what you say and how you say it. If you're screaming at me, I'm certainly not listening. Yeah. And nor do I think you're really bringing in a rational point.
Yeah.
Like the table.
Kind of wasting everyone's time sort of thing.
A little bit. And by all means, go in the backyard and yell to the heavens, because I get it. And honestly, I feel like doing it sometimes. But so yelling at people and screaming at people is not effective, turns out. So
my kids feel you on that. Yeah.
Right.
Why is there so much yelling? What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
I probably would go with my first choice. I really wanted to be a doctor and specifically a pediatrician.
Oh,
And I am, turns out, terrible at chemistry and biology. Had my sophomore year at South Carolina and nearly failed out of college, taking a super heavy science. Like, it was a really weird semester. I played soccer at South Carolina, and so in the fall we traveled a lot. And we had all these commitments, and I, of course, decided that was the perfect time to take the hardest bio and chem
wow.
classes, and so it didn't go well. And you know what, like with all things that I've lost and or failed at, it led me in a very different direction, which was wonderful. But if I could go back,
Mm,
I definitely would. I think I would have maybe waited a semester and then done it again when I could actually focus on it a little better. So
mm.
that'd be my other profession.
Yeah, interesting. What profession would you not like to do?
Um, so my first job was as a hotel manager, and I never, ever want to do that again. Not because it was fairly unpleasant, but because you are on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week,
Oh,
365 days a year. And
wow.
for me, that is not good for my mental health.
Yeah,
I very much so have to disconnect from things. And that was,
gosh.
whew,
Wow,
that was intense.
that's brutal. I didn't know. Is
Yeah.
that still like a thing? Like that's for all hotel managers? They're
I
like
mean,
part of the job? I mean, that's
it
like
is,
wild
oh,
to me.
for sure.
Because even
I mean,
doctors and stuff,
everything,
like they get a break, like, isn't there somebody else? I mean,
right?
they obviously have a team, I guess, but
Well, I think big hotels have teams, but
yeah.
if somebody doesn't show up for your night audit position, somebody's got to run all the rooms and balance the sheets every night. I mean, there's a lot of activity from an accounting standpoint. You probably love it, actually. That
Tell me the
happens.
thing.
I mean, right? That happens within a daily reporting period. It's not like another business where you could maybe stretch it out a week. I mean, things have to be processed that day. And so it gets done at night. And I think I
Wow,
just hate staying up all night. Never a party animal in that regard.
that would be brutal. Yeah, I'm already
Yeah, I'm exhausted all the time, anyways, right?
pregnant. Okay,
Yes.
well, last question. We're getting really deep. If heaven exists and you reach the pearly gates, what would you like to hear God, source, whoever say to you?
I have thought about this, and I don't know. Maybe we'll start from welcome, like your family's waiting on you.
Yeah,
Like that'd
probably
probably be, yeah, that'd probably be the
be a
best. Or
good.
like you're all right now.
Yeah,
Everything's okay. I think
yeah,
that's it. I try
yeah,
not to think about that part too much.
yeah. You're like,
Um,
I don't want to. Yeah, but good. Yay. Okay, let me pull up and just make sure I can see. Okay. If anyone needs to comment,
yeah.
please feel free to jump in. But we'll get started. So give us a proper introduction of you, Rebecca. I know we did the questions. We know your favorite
Sure.
words and sounds, but let's
Right.
properly do this.
Well, as Jordan said, I'm Rebecca Epstein. I am the principal attorney here at Epstein Law. We are a business-focused law firm, and I've been practicing in Charleston for 12 years. I am actually a Charleston native, which is pretty hard to find. I know
Yeah.
we've talked about that before, but I grew up over here in West Ashley and love it. I went to Bishop England High School and played soccer again at South Carolina. Which is really a huge, my soccer career, what it was hugely foundational for me as a person. It taught me, how to work together with other people, how to really bring my strengths to the forefront, how I could serve others, how to get along with people maybe that I loved and maybe people I didn't like. It taught me the discipline of keeping a tight schedule, of working out, of making sure that my physical and mental health, although mental health was not addressed so much in my day, but it's been addressed now, which is amazing because there's lots of stuff in sports that happens that perhaps maybe it shouldn't have happened or shouldn't happen. But that was such a fun experience, and I got to play against some rock star soccer players, which was amazing. So after Carolina, I managed a hotel. I kind of fell into that job, and it was pretty fun. I had a good year between college where it was super disciplined and law school where I once again was super disciplined. So I wilded out a little bit and had a great time. My mom finally was like, maybe you should do something with that history and English degree. And I worked a couple summers at the Historic Charleston Foundation and their archives collection and stuff like that, and was freaked out by going up into the third floor of those haunted houses and vacuuming things with like protective stuff on top of it. So
Oh, wow.
I knew that perhaps archiving and the historical part of what I was doing wasn't necessarily the best fit. I knew I really liked entrepreneurship generally, and watching people build businesses and build products, both services and products. It fascinates me to this day, the way that people make money. It's incredible, the diverse number of ways that you can make money. So I enjoyed that. And I had a mentality, generally speaking, where it's just like, well, if you don't know what to do, just make a choice and go with it. And it'll either be great or it won't, but I try not to stay still for too long with stuff. I do think them through thoroughly, just for the record, but so I chose law school. I figured it gave me the best and most wide variety of opportunities, and it sure has. So I had the pleasure of graduating in 2009, at December actually, and began working in early 2010, which, if you recall, is a real great time for our economy. I took a job with a large law firm, and I did not enjoy it. It was not for me. And so I got a call from one of my friends, and they said, well, great news. I'm being sued for a non-compete violation. Can you help me out? And I was like, sure. I have no idea what to do. So I called my friend for moral support, Adam Howell, and the two of us formed our first law firm, Epstein and Howell, and we were together until the end of 2018. He just does personal injury and that kind of stuff, and I started doing more business. So our marketing stuff didn't work well together, at which point we have Epstein Law and Adam's just down the street at Howell Law. But I really, from that first initial case, I really got focused into transactional law versus litigation, and drafting contracts and really preventing situations from happening. That was kind of my impetus. How can I help my small business owners who don't have a lot of access to resources with making things practical and usable and digestible? So that's kind of how I got to where I am. I've been practicing for, I think, 12 years in September. I'll have to look at my bar, my AIS. So yeah, and I love it. I love my job most days.
Yeah. And like, that's what I love about you, is when you're saying like preventing things, because like, that's so like, just every contact that we've had, I get that from you. It's not like the attorneys who are like muddying the waters to make it seem complicated and difficult and terrible and all these things. It's like, you're really there to make it easy, prevent things in the first place. And that's like such a gift.
It's nice too, because it empowers people to be able to make their own decisions, and you feel confident. It's like teaching a man to fish. We want our clients to really understand what's happening in the situation, even if there's a lot of legal language. Our job is to make sure you understand it, because ultimately we aren't in your business. We aren't running it. You are, and you have to talk to clients, and you have to make sure that those things are effective. And so in that regard, I love that we do that, and I love that part of what we do. Sometimes we have to be mean, and that's okay, because we can't prevent all problems from happening.
Somebody's got to do it.
Well, and there's a good bit of kind of irrational thought going on, within the human construct.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. But
so let's, take like a big picture view of this conversation, because, I titled it, making sure legal entity selection to CYA and, save money, or what did I actually call it? Save money and CYA. So let's talk, what entity selection is, who it's applicable to, and why it can save you money.
First of all, I want to tell you that I really wanted for a long time to call my firm the CYA law firm. And my mother, once again, the voice of reason, was like, don't even do it. And I was like, people think it's funny. She's like, nobody names their business that. That is inappropriate. But I have not gotten to where I've gotten by listening very well. So just kidding. Just kidding there. So anyways, so our FAQ in my office is always, can you form your own LLC, or I don't know what kind of business I need to form. And those are all really subjective. Well, what kind of business and entity you want to use is very subjective as to what type of business you're doing. And a lot of times we have, as you know, Jordan, we make inks. We build inks for very specific purposes, and that's liability purposes and also tax reasons. Our most common entity is the LLC, that limited liability company, which is awesome. It's also the newest of all the entities. It's a baby compared to the rest. It was started in, I believe it's 1977 in Wyoming, was the first LLC, and then a bunch of lawyers got together in the late 80s and early 90s and canonized the doctrine, and all the other states have adopted it, which is why the IRS said, forget it, we're not trying to deal with this limited liability deal. You can be taxed as whatever you want, but it is an awesome vehicle for 90% of all businesses. One, you absolutely can form it on your own. And it's super malleable, meaning that you can use it for a variety of different things. And it really does offer pretty good liability protection. I won't talk about taxes in this kind of thread, but I will say the liability protection is great. Now, there is a huge asterisk up there, or footnote, and when we answer the can you form an LLC without an attorney, I told this story this morning actually in another discussion. And this past week we've had our house painted, right? And I came home on Monday and all of my dressers and everything, they're all turned into the middle of the room and the entire room is taped down. And I can't get to anything. Like, that's it. I'm done for the week. I had to wash my clothes, wore the same outfit 4 days in a row. Clean. Not very cute.
Yeah.
So anyhow, like, forming an LLC on your own is absolutely effective. But what it is dropping a tarp on top of those items, that furniture, and it's not securing it, because there are several things that our judiciary has said, hey, our legislators have said, like, hey, you don't need an operating agreement. You can do this on your own. You can have an oral agreement between LLC members. You don't have to do all these things. We're going to make it so easy that, unfortunately, people get themselves into pretty bad situations. They either have disputes with partners because there's no written agreement between the two of them, or they get into a legal situation and their personal liability protection is gone. So things like that a lawyer does is just the tape on the floor to make sure that all the effort that you went through to put that plastic down, move all that stuff to the middle, put the plastic down, that it actually gets protected. So that's the LLC. I can get real into the weeds on it, but I won't for everybody's sake.
Say for like state to state, like our state doesn't make you do the, like, what is the annual thing called?
Yep, annual filing fee. So
Yeah.
your annual filing fee in the state of South Carolina is going to be the fact that you do your personal South Carolina return. If you fail to do that for a period of 2 years, I believe they'll administratively suspend your LLC, at which point you have to go back and let the DOR know that you've filed all your returns, and then we have to file a bunch of paperwork on our side to get you reinstated. So that happens a lot.
Yeah, I feel like,
what are you gonna do?
With knowing people state to state, it comes up a lot that we just assume that our state is like everyone else's, and that is a piece that is different.
Well, like California, it's $800 every year. I'm trying to think. Delaware, I want to say, is like $400. I could be wrong though. Please forgive me there. The filing fees also vary from state to state. There are different requirements. Interestingly enough, we get a lot of businesses in here that are transacting business across state lines and have different reporting requirements or licensing requirements. There are a lot of restrictions on business that people do not realize are out there until they get a ticket for it.
Mm-hmm.
And all that stuff is usually, go ahead.
People with like locations in other states, or is it the online space? Because I know those are kind of they're
Both.
getting privy to, yeah. Oh my,
Yeah,
so-
no, it can be either. And it can be, it can even just be like I moved from Georgia to South Carolina. And in Georgia, I didn't have to have a cosmetology license. And in South Carolina, you do. And so, it's silly stuff like that where there's just this between the states, there's not any cohesiveness. And in fact, we talk about that in our office a lot. I think with the dawn of the internet back in early 2000s, we failed to really update our laws to reflect the excessive amount of interstate commerce that's occurring, and the necessity to have some cohesiveness between the states, because it is difficult as a lawyer. I talk to lawyers in Kentucky and North Carolina and Virginia, and all of us are coming from vastly different state laws. As for an LLC, like I said, in the early 90s, they canonized most of it, and most states have adopted similar limited liability company acts. So that makes that portion a little bit easier. It's just the regulation of the industries within the state administrative bodies.
So would you recommend if someone moved to our state or moved out of state, like they contact an attorney and either like redo it or it needs to be merged, or kind of what does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I would honestly, I start with my very favorite friend, Mr. Google, and just take a peek and see if there's anything that pops up. If there's nothing that pops up, or if you're uncomfortable with it, then, or if you need to do something, contact an attorney. Certainly, we do help a lot of people get through those applications, and we try to have people do them with just a little bit of our nudging. Like, is this what I'm supposed to put here? I always laugh, like state forms are really confusing.
Yeah.
Right? For something that's supposed to be super clear. I fill them out at the doctor's half the time and I'm like, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So we do help people with that because we will call. We have usually done the form before and know. Little tricks. So
right. So that's LLC. So do you want to move on to like kind of go through give us a little taste?
Yeah, the most one of the more common, we have two more common, well, actually all three of them are pretty regular, but sole proprietors are going to be your easiest business entity to set up. It takes almost no effort. You do not have to register with South Carolina Secretary of State's office. I do believe you have to register with the Department of Revenue, and you need to have a local business license, but you can go ahead and start the sole proprietorship at any point, start transacting commerce. Again, business license is key. Make sure you do have one of those. Anyone who is selling anything in the state of South Carolina, at least anything, should have a business license. That again is another FAQ in our office. So, but the disadvantage to the sole proprietorship is super easy to use. You have no liability protection. Whatever's happening, you are going to have to deal with personally. Your name is going to be on a lease. Your name is going to be on a lawsuit. Your name individually. If you do a sole proprietorship, I would strongly advise, and Jordan, you can reiterate this, but we encourage you to get an EIN so that your social security number is not on everything. So that's
I was
kind
about
of
to ask about that. I'm like, is it required, or is that just like, I was like, it's just, I've always like put it as a requirement, but I'm like, I guess it's not, but yeah,
it's not,
it's going to be your social.
And you don't want that on everything. We try to keep as much personal information, if that even is a thing with computer privacy. I swear I was talking about going to New York City and my phone 10 minutes later sent me an email from Delta on a flight to New York City. So
but like I feel like we get, we collect W-9 forms from people and subcontractors. Whenever I get one with like a social security number on, I'm like, oh, I just want to talk to you so bad, or like somewhere, like but yeah, that's the whole side thing. I'm like,
and it's not the end of the world. It's a great, I love it for a lot of artists kind of start here because, and I say artists, they're pretty low liability. I mean, you're not like breathing fire artists or anything that's excluded from this. But they are really easy to start, and it does give people kind of, there's no barrier to entry. And I think that that's important, especially again, for folks that are just kind of coming out and not sure if they want to do this business or not. Maybe they're setting up a table at a crafts fair or whatever it is. I mean, it's a great starting place. The thing that you need to evaluate is once you start making money and once you start entering into contracts, then at that point you really need to start thinking about shifting it over. One, for building brand identity, which is not something, that was something we talk about a ton, but for a lawyer and specifically for us, we're always thinking about your brand identity because that's your trademark. That's going to be the strength of the business that you sell. We tell people a lot of times, it's great. Epstein Law is great, but I'm never going to be able to sell Epstein Law. What I need is CYA. Anyone can be CYA, right? But not anyone can be me. And so, with the sole proprietorship, you don't have that opportunity. So when we see people that they're really starting to hit that growth curve, we kind of encourage them to move over to the next step, which is that LLC. The other thing that we see kind of in between is a partnership. This is essentially, and it's not, in my mind, in a lot of ways, it's like a sole proprietorship. You do have to file paperwork with the DOR. You do not have to file it with Secretary of State. This is a default categorization. I am not a huge fan of it because it's a lot of pass-through liability. Both, for my world, it's malpractice pass-through, and from a tax standpoint, it's pass-through. So I think that there are a lot of issues. I've also seen some very big fights over partnership returns and the delegation of interest in a partnership, or movement of interest in a partnership, and it's been messy.
Mm-hmm.
Good description. But I don't think that there are LLPs and there are other like little side hustles of those, but
I'm gonna ask, because they're like the individual side would be proprietor, sole proprietor, and LLC, and then you've got partnership, and then LLP kind of would be like a stacking equivalent of that, or it's not really that equivalent.
Well, LLPs are going to have general partners, and then you're going to have regular partners. So they're set up just a smidge differently. There's a different hierarchy, although there could be one in an LLC. That's the thing about those LLCs, man. Like I said, they're super malleable and they can look like anything. I think,
and tax
I never actually,
big.
Oh yes, but I'll have to look at the history of the LLP. I'm a little curious because I've actually never delved into it, but
much about it. But yeah, I was just trying to make connections, but yeah, so that's not one of the, I guess, common ones that you see.
No, again, we see them mostly in older law firms, and I think it's a little bit of an older entity selection, and I am 100% sure that there are probably handfuls of businesses that it's super appropriate for and works perfectly. I just don't have to deal with them right this moment, or haven't been dealing with them. The other main kind of format and entity type is going to be a corporation. And I always ask people, do you really understand how a corporation works? Because it's tricky. A limited liability company is going to have two parts. You've got your equitable ownership, which is your membership interest, and then you've got your members. The members usually own the membership interest. Occasionally we have managers that do not own any of this membership interest, but they're usually two-pronged with those two players. A corporation, on the other hand, has three players. You have your shareholders, you have your board of directors, and then you have your daily management. And so, there's also two different types. Actually, there's many different types of corporations. One that's kind of falling into favor right now is B Corps. We've been learning a little bit more about B Corps. And they are entities that quantify their equity, not just with the financials, but with their impact on the environment, their treatment of employees. So you get a little more of a holistic picture when it comes to the equity of the company. So you don't just have, these hugely profitable companies that are just crushing their employees, and you have a little more of I want to invest in this company because it's a B Corp. It cares about things other than just the financials. You have a statutory in the state of South Carolina. You have a statutory close corporation, which I think is a pretty rad thing. It looks a lot like an LLC. You have shareholders. and you elect not to have a board of directors. So then you just have these daily management. So your CEO, those titles down here. So you've kind of got that limited liability format again. I don't want to flip anyone off by accident there.
Like that one, that one in the B Corp, I'm like, yeah, like I didn't actually think of those being like entities. Like I see it marketed, but I didn't like think about it being like a legal thing. So yeah, that's really
we get a lot of comments and questions on co-ops, which are honestly just LLCs with the like 10 members. I will say, I think that I don't like to have a lot of members in my LLCs. I am very cautious, and I think that's because we've seen so many things kind of blow up. And in an LLC, it's very different kind of than a shareholder in a corp, although most of the businesses we work with are pretty closely held. So, it is problematic to have a lot of shareholders members in an LLC if you anticipate them working in it and providing services, because a lot of times people piece out and do nothing and then get the benefit of it. And in fact, I got a nasty case going on right now that really does address that, where 3 people, 2 have just worked their tails off, and the third just has kind of put roadblocks up at every instant, and they're getting ready to divest themselves of their assets. And unfortunately, that third member that's been a pain in the neck is going to get an equal share as the first 2.
Yeah.
So,
So this, I feel like I'm looking to see, we've got some likes. If anyone has any comments or questions, let us know. What was I going to say? So it's great, obviously, in the beginning, picking the entity. At what point, I know we kind of talked about like going from the sole proprietor, and kicking up there. What's kind of another trigger or, a growth phase that, you're like, let's reevaluate.
When you have enough money to pay yourself a regular salary, I think at that point we need to have a conversation. If you have enough capital to run your business for 3 to 6 months built up, I think it's time to have that conversation. That means you're doing something great, and we just need to make sure that we've evaluated kind of your process. We've talked through it. We actually have clients that don't need our help, that we just kind of bounce things back and forth, and we say, hey, you're great, you don't need to change anything, or it's just not a great fit for this. But when you really start growing, when you start paying yourself, when you start hiring other individuals, we always want to talk to you about hiring other individuals. It's very tricky, as those tricky independent contractors and employees. They are up there with sweat equity in my world. The confusion between the two, not the people.
Oh my gosh,
but
yeah, don't get me started. So someone's like my 1099 employee, I'm like, no, that's not a thing.
Oh, we get agreements all the time. 1099 employees.
Like, that's my thing. When I see that online or something, I'm just like, so yeah, but we'll go down that.
Yeah. And I mean, just if you're in a place where maybe you're getting a big contract, we try to be accessible and easy to talk to, in the sense of, do I need your help yet? Is this time? And we can pretty much say yes, no, maybe. And then we work usually with accountants like you and other advisors that these individuals have, and we make that decision or help them make that decision. Because there is, going from sole to a limited liability company is a pretty easy transition. Going from a limited liability company to a corporation, again, pretty easy. Going from a corporation to a limited liability company is pretty hard to come back from. I believe mostly from a bookkeeping standpoint, but there are other implications that occur. So we like to talk about all those things just to make sure that we don't have to pay to get you back the other direction, or you have to pay. That's not fun.
So we've kind of been talking about like the CYA piece and like peaceful and covering yourself and all that. Like, what's kind of the money piece of it? If you kind of want to touch on any of that, like I know, you're not an accountant and tax accountant and all that, but we kind of talked about that as like a part of the discussion. So I don't know whatever
Well,
you
and
feel
it
comfortable
inevitably,
mentioning.
yeah, none of this is legal advice. Right. No,
And,
no.
everything is, it depends, or whatever the answer.
It does depend. Honestly, all this stuff is so subjective. But I think the main thing I really want to point out is that because limited liability companies are disregarded entities, that there are a lot of different things we can do with them with your accountant to create tax advantages. The other thing we've been working with a lot of clients with is insulating different parts of their business. So if we, for instance, had a construction company and they provided service right here, they provided equipment right here, and then they provided both combined, or let's just put a third service in there of some sort, over here, framing. We end up siloing businesses. So maybe you have a top entity that owns it, but we want to be sure that equipment is treated very differently from a tax perspective than service is. And so we have used different entities in order to get a better tax advantage for some of our larger businesses that we do work for. The other thing that does is it cauterizes your liability and kind of places it in one of those silos should an accident happen, or it allows you to divide it up. Sometimes, and we work really closely again with accountants on these matters, and also with insurance providers, because at the end of the day, you really need to put those fail safes in with your business. So the limited liability protection or that corporation is great, but what if that corporation has to come up with a bunch of money? Well, it turns out your insurance company has it. So we silo a lot of stuff like that. I've seen a lot of siloing of employees specifically because employment litigation is kind of on the rise. Not kind of, it is on the rise. It is a very litigious area right now. It's very expensive. I think that this is a little bit of kind of the reckoning that has happened in the past few years with pay rates for, pay rates being increased to actually reflect living wages. So I think people have got a little more confident asking for the things that they think they need or deserve. So we've seen that kind of increase. And as a result, we've seen more requests for, oh, I want my employees in this company over here away from my tangible assets. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, I guess my question is, so you have this EIN, that's the broad one. And when you say you silo them, that means it's still under the EIN. Like
we don't put them under the
entities.
EIN.
Okay.
We have repeat offenders. So my members are going to probably be the same across the board. It's the same 2 people. And actually that's something that comes up with like people that own investment property.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be real thoughtful about that because you've got a mortgage typically, and you're going to quit claim a property into this LLC. Banks are not real fond, unless you have an LLC with a lot of history and money. They're not hugely fond of lending LLCs money. So within a 3 to 6 month time period, usually people quit claim that deed in there, and then they are able to manage that asset from there. So we actually assign a new EIN. We really discuss the types of rentals that our clients have when we're doing asset protection and the dollar value of those entities. We have actually seen, because the equity in houses has been so much, the equity has grown in homes. We've seen that, where we would put maybe $500,000 worth of houses, which is maybe 3 houses in Lake Ladson or something, the equity's gone. Now we have to ship this home out of there, or whatever the insurance limits are. Like I said, we work closely with the accountants and the insurance brokers to try and make sure that is a tight fit.
Yeah.
That maybe answered, maybe not really.
Yeah. So
different
you're
EINs,
basically
though.
breaking it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something
And
else
that's
that came
where,
up.
yeah.
Another thing I was thinking of was like an intensive I did the other week, and she's kind of thinking about different revenue buckets. And so at what point, if it's like service-based or services and products, like what constitutes the need of starting a new EIN or a new entity? Like, because like some people, especially service providers, or they have products and services, like if they're kind of starting a new revenue stream, is there like any time that triggers like a new entity, or when it's under that EIN? Like,
I think a lot of it again is
like,
specific to what that service. Yeah. No, what that service is. And so actually I was talking about it with my one of my brokers this morning, and he was talking about one of his clients bolted on a service which he specifically said the insurance will not cover. And so at that point, because the combination of the two services became too risky, it's just a risk tolerance for
Gotcha.
us particularly. But it became too risky. He was able to pull it apart and get two separate policies in that regard. So that's a pretty good example as to kind of when we're starting to break things up or what facilitated that need. Money usually isn't it. I think it's more of locations are different. We've seen a lot of like F&B clients recently that you have two owners that are the same throughout the 6 restaurants and two owners that change with each of the 6 restaurants. And that's a little bit of a tricky mess there, because, you know, there's some other some licensing and trademark issues that occur there that become kind of franchise adjacent.
Yeah.
We just kind of, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah.
You know, that
Do y'all do franchising stuff?
We do. That's actually a huge part of my practice. I represent 2 franchisors and at the current moment, and we do a lot of franchisee review. And it's really fun. I mean, it's once you get into the hang of it, there's a lot of federal requirements and it's a huge document. But once you kind of, like everything else, there's a format to it. And once you get used to reading them, it goes by kind of quickly.
Yeah.
Plus, like now I know how Chick-fil-A operates. Just saying.
Yeah. And
So,
that's
secrets to the universe.
Yeah. Rebecca has them.
That's right. No, Chick-fil-A has them, not me.
I know, for real. Yeah.
At least when it comes to efficient service, man.
Yeah,
I am always so impressed. But it is impressive, and I think that's really like speaks to what the franchise could be. Generally, if you run a good franchise like that, the continuity and the speed of service is just incredible, and it's really cool to see. I mean, it's like going to tour a facility where, you know, you have so many moving parts, and it's amazing to watch all these parts move together in a way that just is good business. So that's pretty fun.
Like this beautiful dance that they all just do, and
a symphony. You know, we've got a bunch of things going on. So we love franchising. Interesting area.
Well, that's good to know. Good.
Yeah.
I think that's all my questions. We don't have any questions.
Awesome.
And I'll just tell everyone, you know, if you all do have questions or comments later, drop them in. We'll make sure Rebecca gets them, or I'll send them to her if she doesn't see them, if she's not tagged. But we'll get you the information you need. Leave a comment. There's still time. We'll pick a winner on Friday. And then Rebecca, please tell us where they can find you, you know, all the things.
You can find me under my desk most of the time, rocking back and forth. So no, we are over
screaming the F word out in the yard
with my drumsticks. It's a real pretty picture. No, you can find us on the internet at Epstein Law LLC.com. We have a ton of blogs there, and they're great for first-time business owners, and they're good for experienced business owners who are maybe asking some of the questions that you asked today. You can find us on socials. I have no idea what our handles are because I'm not allowed to touch them. And you can call our office, and Jordan, you have that contact information, or schedule an appointment. We love meeting local business people. Like I said, I have some of the coolest clients in the world. It makes me love what I do. And I'm Claire, my associate, is equally enthusiastic, and my team here is just fantastic. So we love what we do. We love visiting local restaurants and stores and seeing what you're doing out there. So reach out to us.
Yes,
for sure.
Rebecca is a fabulous resource. Yeah, check out her Instagram, and I put it on the promo thing. I think I put your social media handle there. But yeah, I looked at it. There's lots of, you know, free information, and y'all are funny. So that's
we have our we try not
humor.
to take ourselves too seriously, because what we do is pretty serious, and you know, can't be so serious about yourself, at least. So. Well, this has been great, but Jordan. Thank you so much for having us.
This is great, and we'll put it on my YouTube channel. Like I said, I know that like this isn't a conversation that everyone needs every week, but like it's here, it's out there. People can have it and use it, and still contact us for any questions, because Rebecca is amazing. So thank you so much again, Rebecca.
Thank you so much.
I will see you sometime around town, I guess.
Yes, you will. Have a wonderful
Go get
Wednesday.
some more coffee or something. All right.
That's
you too.
right.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.